The views and comments expressed on the following radio program by its hosts and their guests do not necessarily reflect the views of rmconair.com or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to the Knowledge of Self Radio Show. Welcome back. It's been a minute. I'm Life Allah, your host on this particular show, and to my far left is my co-host,
Ture Allah. Peace.
Peace. First and foremost, we want to thank you for tuning in today. We have a real serious show today in the Day of Understanding. But before we go into the show, we want to give a special shout out to Mr. Jewel Stanton Sims, who unfortunately returned to the essence. So to the God Jah Kill and his family, we want to send a special meditation for you and your family, man, and our condolences. Moving right along, we also want to give the audience and the listeners the phone number to the show. It's 323-965-1600. Our sponsors for this particular show is going to be, again, Global Position Solutions, as well as EPS Multimedia. Today's show, as I said, is a serious show, not like the other ones wasn't, but this one in particular, in the Day of Understanding, is going to go into the radio frequency ID topic, the birth certificate, and a host of other issues that we feel is very important for you to understand. Some of the questions that we're going to ask and answer is, what is RFID? Where did it come from? How does it affect us today and the effects that it will have tomorrow? What is the significance of those effects? How long has it been used and how long will it be used? And the real truth behind your origin in this world. Not your natural origin, but your other origin. So moving right along, I'm going to go ahead and segue over to my co-host, and he's going to go into a few other issues with you today. Peace.
So I wanted to share the references that we'll be drawing off of today. And although we might not directly quote them, we always encourage our viewers to check these things out. First one is a DVD titled America, Freedom to Fascism by Aaron Russo. It's right here.
Yeah, put it up close.
Peace be upon him. He's no longer with us. This is a really good book in terms of mind control, things of that nature, and this relates directly to the RFID technology. It's titled Mind Control, World Control, the Encyclopedia of Mind Control. The author's name is Jim Keith. I inherited that one. Whitewashing Race. There are several authors, Michael Brown all the way through David Wellman. It's right here. And last but not least, Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper. Can't see the title. Let's see. There we go. So we encourage you to check these texts out. Gives you a bit of broader knowledge in terms of some of the topics we're going to be addressing today. In addition to that, you can check out sacredtext.com, which is a really interesting website as far as underground or your more provocative information that you might not see publicized or you will not see publicized on any regular media station. And also, I encourage the audience to check out George Bush's speech on September the 11th, 1990, through the Miller Center of Public Affairs, University of Virginia. His address is about Kuwait, the invasion of Kuwait, and also it ties into this whole idea of a new global order or a one government. And in addition to that, check out Wired.com. And that'll be mentioned further along during the show.
Okay. All right. We're going to, again, like I said, we have a lot to talk about. But before we go into the meat of the matter, I wanted to, first of all, talk about the mission of Knowledge to Self Radio. There's been a lot of input from our viewers as well as our listeners out there on how the show is going. Again, it was a pilot show last month for Black History, to give us some type of outlet that we can receive some type of knowledge and information that could be useful to you. So I wanted to go over the mission again, just in case most people may not understand what the show is truly about. Our mission as a cadre of voices is to create a forum of participants, listeners, and other educated and or uneducated individuals that will promote a healthy global community in terms of information that you might not have got while you was in school or you might not have gotten anywhere, and this is just another outlet for you. At the same time, this is not a place for debates and going back and forth like some other shows may do to give you more entertainment. It's more to give you more insight on certain things that can, give you more leverage in terms of how to survive this new world order, if you will. And again, our aim is to create an educational partnership amongst our participants, those on the show that will be coming in future shows. We're going to have a lot of people come and be interviewed, as well as those out there who want to call in. And we want you to call in, specifically those that have children or even young people. This knowledge is really for you, as well as those elder folks that would like to have an optimistic mind and view about how things are working in the world. So, where do we begin?
I'm going to begin with the history of the RFID.
Yeah, let's start there. What is RFID?
Radio frequency identification technology.
Okay, and where does it come from?
It was developed in World War II, during World War II, by the British. And the whole purpose of it was because using conventional radar during that time, it was difficult to tell or identify which airplanes that were returning to, the home shore from missions. So it was hard for them to distinguish the difference between
the friendlies and enemies, right?
So in order to monitor that closely, they developed some new technology, which today is known as RFID. So it's basically a sensor that can be placed in several items. And now what we're going to build on later, not only food products, but people and animals and anything else that a company or manufacturer may want to monitor.
Right. Okay. So it's a monetary type, transporter or some type of frequency device that you'll be able to detect and be able to monitor movement, action, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly.
Wow, that's big. That's big. Okay, so you want to continue, God, as far as the other issues here?
Sure. One of the things that I wanted to point out, of course, during the show is that when we're talking about new technology, we have to ask ourselves, how does this new technology benefit us? And also, if we're not mindful or watchful or, watching the process of technology, there could be some dire consequences in terms of development.
Right.
So like was mentioned before, RFID was developed in World War II, so we're talking about the 1940s. So it has since progressed to a degree to where it is in our society, is widely being used. Now, one of the things that you need to be aware of is that in 1999, there were 3 major entities that invested in developing RFID to the degree that we can see today. Those companies are Gillette, the people who produce razors, Procter & Gamble, as well as MIT, which is one of the most foremost universities in terms of technology. And what came out of this was the development of a better device, a device that was not only smaller, but that was more effective for whatever the manufacturer's needs were. So the way it's been described by one author by the name of Catherine Albrecht, she's the author of a book called Spy Chips. She said, just to quote her, that shortly after the RFID was developed by these 3 entities, without consumers' knowledge, they went ahead and put it into the packaging, or at least what packages Kraft Philadelphia cream cheese and the Mach 3 razor. So this was something that, of course, the general public wasn't made aware of.
Wow.
So if you like, you can do more information or do more searches about this, because it's all over the internet, and there are several books written about the subject. So we have to ask ourselves, why are we using this type of technology, and what are some of the consequences in regards to how it's being used in today's world? And we're going to continue to build on that.
Right, exactly.
As we progress.
Okay. Moving right along, this is a real interesting month, this month, as it relates to this RFID subject matter. As we all know, not too long ago, there was a health care bill that was passed by our current president, President Obama, called the Obama Health Care Bill, or the Affordable Health Care Act. Unfortunately, what a lot of people don't do, and it's really unfortunate, they don't read. They just accept whatever is given to them.
True.
And so this month, on March 23rd, there's supposed to be something that's going to happen, or something that's going to take place, and it's going to be widely accepted. And I guess we can go into deeper, as we go along with the show, we go deep into that. But this month, not only is the beginning of spring and the spring equinox, but it's the beginning of a whole new way of living as it relates to this topic at hand. So, God, you want to continue on?
So one of the things I wanted to further add on to was how RFID is being used in today's world. So there are several reports that have confirmed that the United States military is now using RFID for their soldiers. Now, the reason behind that is because they want to monitor each soldier's health, and also it's been said to be used for sake of tracking, so that they can keep track of their soldiers. So this is something that is, the soldiers who participate in this, they're willing participants. But this is one of the things that we have to ask ourselves: to what extent are we developing technology to maintain national security?
Well, you have to understand right now, I was a soldier for 19 years. Some of you guys know that. I was also a medic. And there's a lot that we as medics do in terms of technology. If you remember, we used to have, and some of us still do, the dog tags, which gave us our name, our social security, and our blood type. So what they're trying to do now is to formulate an idea in your head that it'd be easier to put this chip inside you in order to track and monitor your health, your heart, your blood pressure, and everything else. And as we go further on to the show, you'll find that this technology is not what they tell you it is. It's something totally different. And we're going to get into that in just a minute.
Right.
Yeah.
And to describe the device, it's Miss Albrecht said that it is the size of a grain of sand. So that's how small the chip
rice,
is.
Right, a grain of rice,
a grain of rice. So one of the things that, since we are always living in the real world, and sometimes people don't feel like things of this nature directly affect them, one of the references that I gave earlier was on www.wired.com. Where it talks about how they're using RFID in schools. So you want to come back and talk about that?
We could definitely talk about that, and also we could talk about what situations are going to take place in terms of how it was going to affect us, as we had talked about.
Indeed.
So we're going to go into our first break. When we come right back, we're going to go ahead and finish this serious talking and how RFID is going to affect you. Peace.
Peace.
This segment of Knowledge Itself Radio was brought to you by EBS Multimedia, a multimedia service provider for all your audio and visual needs. If you need a logo design for your company or a video promo for your product, like EBS Multimedia on Facebook at facebook.com/Earthbound Sound.
I'm a G-O-D. I'm a G-O-D. I'm a G-O-D. I'm a G-O-D.
The sun, the seven, the moon, the star, follow me now, see?
I'm a G-O-D. I'm a G-O-D. I'm a G-O-D. I'm a G-O-D.
I'm a G-O-D.
I'm a G-O-D. I'm a G-O-D. I'm a G-O-D.
The sun, the seven, the moon, the star, follow me now, see?
I'm a G-O-D. I'm a G-O-D. I'm a G-O-D. I'm a G-O-D.
The sun, the seven, the moon, the star, follow me now, see?
Peace. Welcome back to the Knowledge Itself Radio Show. Again, I'm your host, Life Allah. Again, with my co-host.
Peace, Ture.
All right. We was talking about RFID and the implications of this particular technology and how it's going to affect you, the listener and the viewer. So we're going to segue back over to the God, and he's going to go into a little bit more intricacies as far as how this technology is going to affect you and what you need to be doing about it. So, God, you want to go into that part?
So one of the first things I wanted to point out in regards to how this could affect our daily lives or how it is being utilized in our daily lives, we can begin with an incident that occurred on June the 8th, 2012, where it says that a student was suspended for refusing to wear an RFID tracker in a school-issued badge. So this took place in a Texas high school, and the student's name is sophomore Andrea Hernandez. So the school's reasoning behind using an RFID tag in their student badges was a push to improve student attendance. So what that means is in some cases where students may not be in class or in their seats, they could still be accounted for if they're on campus. And people need to be aware that one way that schools make money is through attendance. So when students aren't present, the school loses money. So the school's reasoning behind using the RFID tag was to make sure that they would be able to maintain the amount of monies that are allocated to them through student attendance. Now, of course, the student's family took issue with the fact that this was something that they've read in the Bible as being known as the mark of the beast, which is where the protest came from.
Right. And I'll talk about that shortly.
Yes,
the mark
sir.
of the beast and how that connects to the whole thing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So just to put it in a nutshell, the student was told that she did not have to use that badge. However, that did not stop several other school districts from doing that. So according to the article that I referred you to, I wanted to mention the other school districts. So not only in Texas, but also they had utilized RFID at a Richmond, California school, a preschool at that. And they basically embedded the chip in students' clothing, and this was in 2010. And also an elementary school in Sacramento, where they attempted to do this, but of course, due to the protest from parents, they decided not to do that. So this is something that will be widely used for a variety of reasons, not only in schools, but in other goods as well. So what could we say about the implications of using these in schools?
Well, you have to understand what's going on. It was also, again, indicated in the Behold of the Pale Horse about this idea in order to control the people. So, yeah, they're going to start in schools. That's where they're dumbing up most of our children anyway, teaching them how to be laborers as opposed to teaching them about entrepreneurship and true and real economics. And so what we want to do here in terms of the overall implication is to go into this law for a minute. Most of us, like I said earlier, are not reading. They're just accepting whatever the media is telling you, What you got to do out there, and I'm going to read it for you just in case, because some of us are not readers. They like to see it visually, right? It says here, on March 21st, 2010, the Senate Healthcare Bill, H.R. 3200, was passed and signed into law. This new law requires an RFID chip implanted in all of us. That means you, all of you, and all of those who accept this mark or this idea. You won't be able to buy or sell without it. This chip will not only contain your personal information with a tracking capability, but it'll also be linked to your bank account. In other words, digital money, right? There won't be no more, it'll be a cashless, paperless society, which is already happening. Most stores, and I know I was overseas, they wouldn't accept none of my cash. They wanted to have a credit card. So this is a part of it. And get this, in page 1004 of this new law, the timing of the chip, right? And I quote, no later than 36 months after the date of the enactment. What does that mean to you? That means March 23rd, 2013, which is 36 months after the law was signed in place. This goes into motion, regardless if you like it or not. And so, folks, people, it's time to really wake up, because Big Brother is not only watching you, he actually owns you. As you can see right there, he owns you. The Fed owns you, and we'll go into that in a deeper detail.
And I wanted to add on.
Yeah, please.
I mentioned Catherine Albrecht's book, Spy Chips.
Right.
And if you look it up online, it'll give you a brief synopsis about what the book is about and what sort of information they're going to reveal to the reader. But a couple of points that she actually highlighted in this, online synopsis was the fact that a stranger could view the contents of what's in your purse or in your in your baggage.
Right.
And which was this was a really astonishing point right here. Stores will change prices as you approach. So
scanning your foods.
Right.
Right.
And also the contents of your refrigerator and medicine cabinet can be remotely monitored, and this is something that pharmaceutical companies are doing today.
Right.
And so this leaves no mystery about the right to privacy and how this type of technology is going to affect our everyday life. And if you check out From Freedom to Fascism, they give a really good or paint a really great picture of how RFID could be used, whereas on the film they talked about, well, the scenario was that someone called into a pizza place to order a pizza.
Right, I remember that. Yeah.
And the person on there knew their name, their address, and if they had high cholesterol and everything else about you. So this is basically a device that's being used to share private information with corporations, businesses,
without
or anyone
question.
who's interested in it. Yes.
It, as like I said, as a soldier, they already have put these microchips in the soldiers already in order to track their health according to them and all of that. But what's even interesting, this RFID requires no battery. As you all know out there, we live in a wireless atmosphere, a wireless environment. All the energy that you see or don't see, maybe you just feel it, is what gives this machine or this little trinket, this little piece of whatever it's called, it actually gives it energy. Therefore, you become the real battery to it. You become the battery. For all those who watch The Matrix out there, I'm quite sure you saw when Morpheus told Neo, for all you people new to this, he showed him an ever-ready battery and said that you were a slave. Now, most people thought that was just entertainment, but respectfully, that was the reality. That is what we're in right now. And that chip, once it goes in you, they can actually use microwave technology, or some saying psychologically, to control your thoughts, control your heart, control your brain. I mean, this is nothing to really play with. You think the drones are up there looking for Al-Qaeda? The drones are not out there looking for Al-Qaeda. The drones are out there looking for you. And while they're doing this, they're able to monitor you, how you move, how you operate. In other words, a serious GPS. Right. You are now the point of no return. So we want to go into...
I wanted to go into some of the health consequences of RFID, because there are several instances where people have, had the implant placed in their dog, and a couple of studies show that there was a skin cancer in some cases. So we're talking about this will affect, your biochemistry. And more than that, since it operates on radio waves, the people who have access to this chip, whether it be in a dog or a human being, they can do quite a few things with that, whether we know it or not, just like you mentioned before. So we're dealing with radio waves, and where can radio waves pass through? They can pass through several different things.
Right. We talk about, mental telepathy and able to read people's minds and be able to go into this whole psychotic situation. The military, for those who've been in it, especially if you've been into a, say, special ops or black ops, as we call it, you already know what I'm talking about and what we're discussing here on this show. This is considered to be a serious matter that most people don't talk about because it's considered to be an act of treason or an act of, that you're a terrorist because you're talking about this. But I think it's important that truth be told so that you can understand what's happening. So again, you go to your supermarkets, you're getting scanned. You go into the subway system, you're getting scanned. Any place you go now, you're getting scanned. Even in your money right now, there's an actual chip in your money. Lots of people don't even know that. Your passports will have it if they don't have it already. Your money will have it, as well as your credit card has it. We call it what we call as a smart card, and that's something that's very, very, very serious. Yeah, it's not nothing to play with, man. It's a real serious thing. And if you have babies and if you're not thinking that this is going to affect them, it's going to affect everyone. And it's here. It ain't coming. It's here now. It's just now that they're going to segue it right into your day-to-day lives. And if you're foolish enough, you'll accept it, and you'll get that digital tattoo, and you'll be controlled like you're being controlled already. Right. That's the way it is.
Right, and if you're interested, you can always look into an interesting website that talks extensively about RFID, mobiledia.com, so it's spelled mobiledia.com, and as well as the U.S. military developing spy chips. You can look at the website www.wnd.com. So there's a lot of interesting information out there that's widely available about this issue.
I want to touch on a subject now that goes to the Book of Revelation as it relates to this RFID thing. I know there was a protest talking about 666 and all this other thing. We have to understand that there's a such thing as real mathematics, real law, real economics that most people are not aware of. So let me go into this Revelation thing before we go into our next break. The Book of Revelations, as we all know, was written by a man named John, who I guess was exiled to the island of Patmos because he was against the authority of what they was doing. He talked about real Christianity, real Gnostic information, which was the real secret knowledge, not the Christianity that you know, like Jesus is in the sky, he'll come back on a horse, and you'll see him when you're dead, that type of thing. No, he was talking about being conscious and being aware of having your natural state of existence be put into play, and they say, oh, we can't have that, so they sent them over there. Now, according to the story, he had a vision. The angel Gabriel came to him and said, hey, you have to write this stuff down. And what he did was project it, or I should say, he put in place and wrote the Book of Revelations. For some, it's real scary, but for those who have the knowledge, it is not scary. It's very informal, and it's even more important, it's very clear based upon the symbolic images that you see in it. So, one in particular, a part of the book talks about there'll be a time where this beast is going to come out of the sea. Well, right now, Obama, his car is called the Beast, right? And this person coming out of the sea represents the people in its entirety, right? And this one person acting on the behalf of the people. He said that this number is the number of a man, and the number is 666. If we understand mathematics, I'm talking about real mathematics, 6 plus 6 plus 6 equal 18. According to Supreme Alphabet, that's rule or ruler. So how do you rule? You rule with knowledge, with wisdom, with authority, with military might, and you rule with numbers, which means economics or money, fiat money. Now, if we look at this 666 and we understand the science of numbers, it's a limited situation. For us, we say it's equality, but for some, it's limited. So the first 6 represents the Roman numeral 6. The second 6 represents sigma, which is the 6 in Greek language, and the A, which represents atom, atom, or the makeup of a man, molecules and cells. This represents a situation that a system is being created, the matrix, if you will, controlled by binary numbers, binary situations, social security numbers, licenses, and everything else that you think is your right to have, which is really only a privilege that could be revoked. So we're going to get back to that. We're going to go into we won't go into it yet. We'll go right into the subject matter. I thought we was about to go to a break, but we're going to go right into the subject matter. So this 666 is a system based upon economics, numbers, and it's based upon your Social Security, the number of your Social Security. And because of that, this RFID chip is able to control you by controlling everything you do, be it mental, physical, social, economic, and or spiritual, which is energy. Energy. And that's something that we really need to pay attention to. So you want to add on to that, God? I mean, I'm quite sure I'm hitting you with a lot of stuff right now, but it's important that we show you. Matter of fact, let me show you what I'm talking about. Most of you, like we all do, unfortunately, we have this card, right? Some of you have this card, the Visa card. As I said, the VI represents 6 in Roman numerals. The S represents sigma in 6 in the Greek language, and the A represents atom, or right, number of a man, right? So we know that all of us, unfortunately, are forced to accept this because we won't be able to buy or sell without it, right? Which is called credit. You can't do anything without credit. So the first time you meet someone, after you get to enjoy them, I guess you'll ask yourself, well, how's your credit score, right? Well, we want to make sure you got good credit, right, in order for us to work together, right? At the same time, you can't go to anywhere without credit. So again, I want you guys to understand that this serious or real matrix is a real system. It's not cyberspace. It's not the internet. But all of us are getting caught up because we still don't understand, how did this happen? How did we allow this to happen? And more importantly, why do we continue to allow it to happen?
Right. And I think the first time I actually started hearing this discussion about RFID and implants and things of that nature, it was in the early 90s. Mm-hmm. So this is what's considered old knowledge that we're sharing with you.
Yeah, this is not new.
You can imagine the amount of progress that has been made.
Oh, yeah.
So in the early 90s, I was made aware that the fibers that were in the barcodes on candy bars, that was the latest technology being used. So that's how they could determine, like, yes, a chip is in your food, whether it's smack dab on the food, it makes no difference. It can be scanned.
Right, without question.
So the main thing that I wanted to add on to what the God Life was building on is that we're talking about a period of time, which is now, where we're going to have to become accustomed to a cashless society. So if you don't have credit and they phase out cash,
which they will,
we're going to have to, revert to more of a barter system.
Exactly.
And there are some underground scoops where they're not allowing people to grow fruits and vegetables or deal with livestock on their property.
Right, because all of the seeds are actually owned by the government. All the seeds that you plant are patented by the government. So there's no way around it other than surviving off the land if you know how to do that. I mean, right now, even for veterans like myself, we're considered a serious threat because we know exactly how the government works. We know exactly what they do because they trained us that way. The biggest thing we have to keep in mind, is that this truth is for everybody. And it's important that you understand what to do with it in order to move ahead and survive. So I guess what we're going to do right now, we're going to go to our other break. We'll come back about this important topic. We'll take some calls as well. So until we come back, we'll say peace.
Peace.
Hey.
Are you tired of those same old energy drinks with bad taste? Make a switch to Pitbull Energy Drink with a guaranteed no aftertaste. Pitbull offers more energy with ginseng and vitamins B6 and B12. With a ginger ale lemon lime flavor, Pitbull meets the consumer's demand for better tasting and healthier energy products with a guaranteed no aftertaste. Make a switch to Pitbull Energy Drink. Pitbull offers more energy with ginseng and vitamins B6 and B12. With a ginger ale lemon lime flavor, Pitbull meets the consumer's demand for better tasting and healthier energy products. For more information on Pitbull energy drinks, bars, and mixes, visit their website at hiphopbev.com. That's hiphopbev.com. Online orders available at hiphopbev.com.
Welcome back to the Knowledge of Self radio show. Again, I'm your host, Life Allah, along with my co-host.
Peace, Ture Allah.
All right. We was just talking to you folks out there about RFID, and we're going to go into a whole nother subject matter now, which is even more interesting. Once you get this knowledge, we hope that you will be truly awakened on why you're in this system and why these things are happening. So, Gar, you want to go into that?
Definitely. So, we titled this segment, Origin of Yourself in the World. So we're going to be building on the birth certificate and what the birth certificate is and how it ties in with the whole idea of not only enslavement, but to reduce human beings to chattel or property. I want to begin just reading a couple of excerpts from a quote by a gentleman. His name was Colonel Edward Mandell House, and I say gentleman respectfully because I am being diplomatic. But in essence, he would be considered President Woodrow Wilson's confidant and advise him in several matters in regards to government. So he's alleged to have made this statement to Woodrow Wilson in regards to the plan to make a more one world government, but not only that, to make people property. So I'm going to read a few lines from this. You can also look up the full quote online or through some other source. But since it's so long, I didn't really want to read the whole thing. I'll just read some of the salient points. So it says here, very soon every American will be required to register their biological property in a national system designed to keep track of the people and that will operate under the ancient system of pledging. Few lines down, he goes on to tell Woodrow Wilson, every American will be forced to register or suffer being able to work and earn a living. They will be our chattels, and we will hold the security interest over them forever.
Forever?
Forever. And most importantly, and I did skip several lines down, again, you can look at the full quote online if you like. They will be stripped of their rights and given a commercial value designed to make us a profit, and they will be none the wiser, for not one man in a million could ever figure our plans, and if by accident one or two should figure it out, we have in our arsenal plausible deniability. So this is a really good segue into our discussion about the birth certificate and how it's being used to enslave people in America and also in Canada and everywhere else where birth certificates are used. I can't think of any society right offhand that doesn't have them. There are some, but in industrialized Western nations, we know that we are registered.
Right.
So I wanted Life to go ahead and get into what is a birth certificate, because some heavy information that one show we don't have enough time to go into it.
But we're gonna go into the surface measure, and for all of you out there, you'll research it on your own. I wanted to show this picture again. Bring it up close. That's you when you were a baby. Maybe not the skin color, but you were a baby at one time. And as you can see, it says the feds own you. Well, how do they do that? Well, let me show you in a quick analyzation. First of all, we're going to go back to 1913 because we got to go there with Woodrow Wilson. At one time, at that time, I should say, there was on the move for World War I, and the United States of America, the corporation, ran out of money. Woodrow Wilson, who was running for the presidency at the time, said, well, man, how am I going to be able to get back and go to my first, second term, whatever it was? He ended up having an agreement with international bankers on a place called Jekyll Island in Georgia. This was a private area where folks from out of town, tourists, can come in and be able to discuss whatever they discuss. Well, they had a private meeting. And in that meeting, they created the Federal Reserve Act. This Federal Reserve Act was a corporation created by international bankers. And in order to get in bed with the government, they had to figure a way that if we give the United States of America a loan, if you will, how will they pay us back? Well, they didn't have no money at the time. So the way they figured it out, they said, well, look, what we'll do is we'll use the human being as a way of paying the loan back. Now you ask yourself, how is that possible? How can I pay back for a loan I never received? Right? Well,
how is that?
Yeah, how is that, you ask? All right, well, this is what they did. In that time, they created this thing, as you can see, the birth certificate. And as you can see up here where the red arrow is pointing, it's a number. It's a numbered document. And below, it says, below it, the American Banknote Company. So most birth certificates are actually bank notes. And those bank notes happen to be bonds, municipal bonds for foreign debt. So let's go into this right quick. So your child is born. You being a person of sound mind, you think, oh, let me just register him or him and everything is good and, we have our census. Well, at one time, there was no census. The only reason why they took census because the ministers at the time had to find out who were Christian families and who were not at the time. So we're going to move forward now, right? So when the child is born, they go ahead and they register for this. They register with the Department of Commerce, and then therefore they give you a number called the Social Security. We're going to move up to 1933 now. FDR says, again, we're bankrupt. What do? He then tells everybody, the citizen at the time, you all have to turn in your gold, which is the real money, in order for us to maintain. In the meantime, I'm going to give you a thing called the New Deal, or welfare reform, or Social Security. And your ancestors and the people who came before you said, yeah, that sounds like a winner. That sounds like a great idea. Therefore, right at that point, between 1914 and 1933, you became an actual slave of the state. That is why children, now if you spank them, I'm going to call the authority, and the state takes them because they're not your property. Once you sign them over on a contract, which is the bond or what they call a warehouse receipt, that individual is not the real individual. He becomes a straw man individual, which is a subsidiary to a corporation.
Right.
Surprise.
Right.
So what we want to do now is to go into how that is the deal. Can everybody see this? The truth about the birth certificate. You see this book called the Uniform Commercial Code. Well, this code is kind of like the Bible of business. And it was established and it's directly based on Vatican law. Let me repeat that. It's based upon Vatican law. Now, we just had the Pope resign not too long ago, for all you folks out there, right? So this right here has a direct connection to the birth certificate and how you still pay taxes based upon the Paris Treaty of 1783, which says King George is still pretty much the main person that governs the United States of America, the corporation. Now, before we segue it over to the God a little bit, because this is a heavy topic and 1 hour ain't going to do it. What we want to go into now is the reason why this is real critical. But before we do, we're going to go to a little break. We'll come right back and we'll give you more information regarding you and the birth certificate. Peace.
Peace.
Welcome back to the Knowledge of Self Radio. Again, this is
Peace.
Life Allah and my co-host.
Ture Allah.
We were talking about the birth certificate. So let me kind of finish this off before we maybe open up for some calls or something like that. Again, once the state has registered your birth document with the United States Department of Commerce, the department notifies the Treasury Department, which takes out a loan from the Federal Reserve. Now, when you go to the Paris Treaty, you'll see why you're still paying the tax, because you said that you were property without even knowing it. So, God, what do you think about all of that? I mean,
well,
this is kind of like the Wizard of Oz. You're going down the yellow brick road, which is the goal.
Right.
You're kind of like Dorothy. You're caught up in a whirlwind, and now you go down. The first person you meet is a scarecrow that has no brain, a straw man.
And then you find out, right, that even if you have children, that you unknowingly gave your child, and just like your parents gave servitude. You to the state, for servitude. And it does go back to a previous discussion we had about the 13th Amendment, which supposedly abolished slavery. And unless you commit a crime, you are considered a free man according to the Constitution. But this is just mind-blowing, mind-boggling to see the reality. So one of the people that has been building extensively on this topic about the birth certificate is a person by the name of Jordan Maxwell. And actually, he's been doing discussions for years among a lot of threats, which kind of took him off of the lecture circuit for quite some time. But in essence,
us off the radio circuit. Who knows?
I mean, you know, everything is tried, but we'll make it impossible.
Be willing to try again. Yeah, exactly.
But he did give us a really interesting discussion in terms of his YouTube broadcast about the birth certificate. So you can just do a search on Jordan Maxwell and the birth certificate. And he actually teaches you or tells you how to read your birth certificate. So he said on the bottom of the birth certificate, quote, this is printed on security paper. So that's one of the things that he wanted people to be aware of. And also, if you look on the right-hand corner, there's a series of red numbers, which he says is a number on the stock exchange. And he actually challenges the viewer to call up a stockbroker, to call up a stockbroker and ask them what stock that is on the Security Exchange Commission. So if you're interested in doing some research about your birth certificate, by all means, give them a call and see what the feedback is. But we're being traded on the stock exchange.
And for what I understand, these birth certificates are worth about $650,000. And the only way that you can come out of it, you have to go and apply through, again, the Uniform Commercial Code with the Secretary of State of the jurisdiction that you were born in, basically proclaiming that you're the person in bold black capital letters is not you. And you can find out how these black letters or these capital letters really affect you, because on all your licenses, you have capital letters. According to Black Laws Dictionary, those letters mean that you're actually a subsidiary to a corporation, which means you're the straw man. You're not really the real man, but you're a, how would I call it, an illusion who happens to represent the real you in capital letters. Yeah, I mean, kind of crazy. It's the most craziest thing I ever researched over the years, and it's the most profound thing that all of us need to wake up on right now, because we're really, really locked into this matrix for real.
True indeed.
Yeah, God. So,
and one of the things I wanted to point out symbolically, what came out of that discussion about birth, in terms of us being born of our mother's water. Maxwell said that when a ship comes into the berth of a port, the person that is receiving the boat wants paperwork confirming that everything that is on the ship is counted for. And it's the same thing that when we're born from our mother's water, we have to forward some paperwork to confirm that, yes, we are giving you this property, which is our children, essentially.
Well, at the same time, we're going to go ahead and start wrapping this up. I guess not. What we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit more, and then we're going to go and wrap it up and bring it to a close. But yeah, God, so back to what we was talking about. This situation, man, is so heavy, and it's a lot to endure as it relates to what do we do now, because we're locked into a system that most of us are not even aware of. So we want to go to maybe a caller, or do we have any calls online? Okay, no callers. So what we're going to do is go back into the reality of this birth certificate and what it really means at the end of the day for all of us. Right now, according to the notes that I had and the research I had, the state, again, claims interest to every child within its jurisdiction. And so, like California has its own law, New York has its own law, but the supreme law of the land is the Constitution. And then from that point, what ends up happening is you're controlled by those different entities.
Right.
Real serious.
And then we're living in an era where there's identity theft. So what's peculiar about this is, how is it that we are losing our identity? Okay, essentially, based on what Life said, we would have to go and tell specific entities
Secretary of State of the jurisdiction you were born in.
Thank you.
If they were sovereign nations. Remember, the 13 colonies were actually the United States. There's 3 definitions of the United States that most people are not even aware of. There's the United States of the Confederacy. That was way before George Washington became the president, right? Then there became the United States, which were, according to the treaties and the contracts out there, those United States were just the 13 colonies or the 13 people who came and declared their so-called independence. You'll know a lot more about that when you look at Frederick Douglass's speech about the 4th of July. And he talked about, I don't know what independence y'all talking about. It ain't for us, it's for you guys. Right. And then, of course, there's the United States of America. And you'll see who really owns that when you look at the Paris Treaty of 1783, and it's going to really shock you once you look at the first paragraph to see who owns the United States. And another thing, as we start to bring this to a close, every president, I mean, from the beginning till right now, when they get indoctrinated into this corporation as the CEO, the first thing they got to do is go over to England and bow to the Queen.
Yes, sir.
All of them do. And you have to ask yourself why.
Do your research.
The Paris Treaty will tell you why. It will tell you why they're doing that. So, very interesting topic, God.
Yes,
and then on this day of understanding, you know, we hope that you understand that what we've given you is just a little sample of the real deal. But it's on the surface measure. It's up to you now, the listener, the viewer, the person out there trying to figure out what's going on, to go and research this information. As you know, they're starting to put a lot of emphasis on controlling the internet now, what goes on there, because it's just too much information out there. We're in the knowledge age. Our people, and this was something that was talked about in the last show, our people are lost through the lack of knowledge. You got to get this knowledge for real, and you got to begin to apply it so that you can become not just slaves of a system, become natural people and live your life in true freedom.
That's true.
You know, that's just something we got to do now.
And part of that is study, expand your knowledge, share it, pass it along, write, read, broadcast, do everything else related to it.
In the streets, out there in the schools, out there on the corners, wherever you can get this knowledge out there, it's important that you learn it. Ignorance of the law is not an excuse. You got to know the real law and how this whole thing is working. Remember, a pope resigned from the Vatican. You got to know it was more than just his health. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that most people don't even have a clue. And I would have to try to, I guess, put in motion. We're going to have a black pope.
He will be an original man.
Yeah, we're going to have a black pope.
Yes, true.
Yeah, that's just how I feel about it. From what I've been seeing and what I've researched, we might have a black pope in our hand. If you got a black president and a black pope, that's a lot of blackness, people. A lot of blackness out there. And we ain't talking about in the dark neither. We're talking about a lot of things that they're using as the smoke and mirrors. So we're going to go ahead and start wrapping it up. Again, we want to thank everybody out there for listening to our show. We did this as a pilot. We've got some great views from other folks, you know, reaching out to us. We want to give a shout out to Lord Ture Allah. He's out there. I see you. Even though you don't think I do, I see you. I got a call coming to you. To the families out there that are going through struggle, remember, in order for us to work together, you got to bring something to the table, mentally and physically, socially, economically, and with the right energy. You got to be at your best in order to make this thing happen. You want to drop some other things? Oh, peace to my babies. Daddy loves you very much. I'm preparing a way for us so that we can, you know, beat this system. It's going to be rough, but you can't win without a fight. That's what it is.
So we always say one thing that you should do is you should view From Freedom to Fascism.
Definitely.
One thing that you should read, Behold a Pale Horse.
Definitely.
And
go to YouTube and just pull up The Truth About the Birth Certificate. It's a 8-minute and 21-second video that breaks it all down in a cartoon version of what I've been talking about.
And what the guy said, that was the third thing. What you should view. Can you tell them that title one more time?
The Truth About the Birth Certificate on YouTube, and you might want to get it now before they take it off. But it's an 8-minute and 21-second video, and it breaks down everything we talked about in detail in a cartoon version. So if you got 8 minutes and 21 seconds, which I know you do, go and watch that video, and then share that video, hyperlink it with somebody else, so that they can understand what is really going on. All this, what they call it, the fiscal cliff and the sequester, all that is smoke and mirrors, man. They really getting ready to take the dollar out, globalization in, which is happening right now. The dollar has no more value. So what are you going to do when it becomes a serious digital money situation and your fiat money means nothing? It's like monopoly money. What happens then? So something to think about. So we're going to say peace. Again, this is Knowledge Self Radio. Thanks for listening. Peace.
Peace.
Thinking that I'm like some kind of magician. The way I'm flipping my diction, I'm on a mission to civilize the savage. I know what a savage is. The truth is controversial like same-sex marriages, but I'ma speak it regardless to whom or what. Numerous attempts to slander with their propaganda. They propagate, they told lies, manipulated. Damn, it hit me hard like when Lamar got traded, but I can't be faded, cause this flow is unfadable. The black man is God, that's not debatable. It's actual, factual. This equation is mathematical. God, I'm not a radical. I'm into practical application. You're into exaggeration of your imagination, and I'm sadly facing another sad situation. It's stagnation. No, it's the total population of the original nation. it's 19 million. All over the planet Earth, there's 4 billion, 400 million. I represent the 2 million Indians, indigenous to the Caribbean. We dribbling with my siblings, fast breaking and pump faking. Rock steady breaking, y'all steady baking off of lysergic acid, dithylamide. So I conquer and colonize your mind and pollinize. A flower to blossom from macrocosm to microcosm to mama's bosom. Breastfeeding for nourishment with the encouragement of my generation for inspiration. Providing insulation from electric currents with negative charges. Now you know who the god is. You phony artists, realizing smart as his hardest and wisdom is power. Providing showers of enlightenment. That's why I'm writing it and reciting it. And